wanted to invite you up if you wanted to sit like closer, just because there might be some more folks trying to get their city passes, and it can get loud in here. And so if you, I just want to make sure you all can hear and we're able to hear each other. And then you can feel free to come back to the mic if you want to speak, or you can speak from here. But I think that might be nicer. There's not that many people here for public comments. Okay, is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it's just busy vehicle sticker season.
I'm just allowing them to sit a little closer,
Oh, yeah.
just in case more folks come in for the stickers.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure we will have more. And if you do speak, if you could please make sure to press it so it's green. That way it can be heard. The meeting is being recorded. Thank you. Of course, thank you.
Hi.
And we're live.
Sounds good. All right, so I would like to call the Human Relations Committee meeting to order. Roll call, Aranella,
Here.
Woywood,
Here.
Pabon, here. Before we get started with the meeting today, I just want to acknowledge two things very quickly. We often pause at city council meetings to kind of reflect on folks who are, doing really great work in our community or sacrificing or going through challenges. And in the 6th and 5th Ward, there are families right now that do not have access to water. And so I just want to let them know that we are here for you. We are working to provide some donations and support for those folks, and I'm working with Alderman Ruiz on that, but there are also many other volunteers supporting and helping and coming out. So we just want to say that we're here for you, and we hope to, that the Public Works Department and other partners that we're working with will find a solution for this, and we thank them for the work that they've been putting in to try to find a solution. They've been working from sunup to sundown trying to find out how to fix this, so want to thank them as well. So just wanted to acknowledge that before we started. Before we get into our agenda items, I just want to open it up for public comments. If anybody would like to make a public comment today.
And just turn on the microphone, please. Thank you.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Ray McMaher, and my pronouns are they, them, and theirs. And I'm a resident of the 3rd Ward, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Queer Berwyn Collective. We're here today because we reviewed the employee handbook, and we wanted to provide the committee with some highlighted areas that we think should be edited or added to. I have a copy with sticky notes in it, which I'll hand to you afterwards. So we think that today's meeting is progress in the correct direction, and we appreciate Alderman Rob Pabon's intent for positive engagement with the constituents of the Berwyn community. We look forward to working with him further on the other important human resource initiatives affecting the LGBTQIA+ community here in Berwyn. Updating the handbook will address many of the initiatives that we originally brought up at our June 8th rally, including implementing a policy for restroom access for transgender employees and residents in government buildings, which should include non-gendered restrooms, implementing or communicating inclusive family-related benefits plans, modeling inclusive language, including pronouns, and eliminating the word preferred from any language, as someone's identity is not a preference, and training all departments in LGBTQIA+ community issues, inclusive language, and continuing the education on an ongoing basis. The Queer Berwyn Collective would like to extend a formal offer to provide further feedback and discussion, and to assist with identifying resources for education and training for city employees, including those who've been appointed to office. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, thank you so much for coming out and sharing today. We will definitely be able to take that and take your suggestions, pass them over to Human Resources and Ruth to take a look at what you all have done work on. So I appreciate, and actually I've been unmiked, but I appreciate you all coming out today and providing those and speaking, in solidarity with folks to bring these suggestions. I think it's really important that the city of Berwyn take feedback with an open heart and open mind and do the work to learn from each other, learn from community members. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have.
Thank you.
Yeah. I also would like to give Ruth the opportunity. Ruth has done a lot of great work, and you don't have to go into too much detail, but Ruth has done a lot of great work in the past year to modernize and get us on track with our employee handbook. And so I would love if you would be willing to share a little bit about that process, if you're open to it, and like what changes maybe you had worked on. The committee is curious because we want to also show the community that there has been changes over time and that progress has been made, but we still need to continue to make progress. So I just want to kind of show that to the community today and hear from you as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, no problem. More than happy to. So this is our newest handbook. It was passed, I believe, last year around January. Before that, our previous employee handbook was over 20 years old. So to say the least, it was old and outdated. One of the things that I kind of spearheaded this one. It started with the previous city administrator, Brian Paps, and I was the assistant city administrator back then. So that was more my project to take it on because it was important for me to make sure that we had all of our policies updated. And included, before we did have a policy on sexual harassment, discrimination, and then it was updated with extra wording after our last third ward alderman decided to have a committee that said we want to expand this, and that was included within this book. Everything within our employee handbook, of course, I run through legal. One of the things when I was doing this, I wanted to make sure because I am accepting of everyone and we want to make sure our community is welcome and our employees are comfortable with their workspace. That's very important to me. One of the things I made sure is I did not use any pronouns except for the word they within this whole handbook. That was my idea because why not? Everyone should feel welcome here as an employee. If there are anything, your recommendations, I would recommend they be referred to the administrative committee because they are behind the policies within the city, but I am very open. I'm always looking for feedback to hear from our employees, from our residents on changes that they think need to take place. So I'll be more than happy to review that, and I would ask that this committee actually refer it to our administrative committee, which is an aldermanic committee, as they deal with the handbook, policies, anything that we have here, HR. As the city administrator, I am actually the HR also, so I deal with all the department heads with all the employees. And one of the things that we have done since I took that spot is within our city's website, I don't know if that's where you found the handbook, we actually have an HR section where I put every single HR form that any employee could ever want, and I just gave them a refresher the other week. If you see something, you don't see something, you want to see something, let me know, and I can put it on there. So it's everything from our health insurance. One of the things with our benefits, since I think we put it within, because online we actually have on our main city's website our diversity mission, just where we are and what we've done. I think since 2009, we have been for anyone who is in a partnership, living with someone, they don't have to be even through a legal marriage, as long as they're partners, they are open to all of our health benefits here at the city. That form for Blue Cross Blue Shield is within that HR section that we have of the website. So I'm always looking for feedback. I always want to make it better. That was just a start that I started to do because that way people don't have to wait for me if I'm out of the office, if I'm busy. I need a form. I want to make sure everyone has accessibility. It's an open book basically there. So if anyone sees anything, recommendations, feel free. My email is on the website afterwards. If you want, I can give you a business card. We're very open to anything, everything. So that's just a quick summary. But yeah, if you could recommend that to the administration,
Yes.
I'd love to take a look at that and see what we can do. The other item that I am updating right now is our city's application. We updated part of it online about a year ago because there was a change in law that you couldn't ask for what their previous pay was. So our hard copies, since we had a whole bunch, we just X'd those out. But then there was slight other language I want to change, and I'm going to be running it through legal. I'm working on that probably over the next 2 weeks, and then we'll be updating that. But that also could go straight to our administration committee too. Before I put the money and get it printed, I want to make sure everyone likes it. I like to be a good steward of our resources here. So, but that's a project that I'm working on right now. But if anyone ever has any comments, suggestions, more than happy. I love to see what I missed or to feedback. So if anyone has any questions, I'm just about always here at City Hall.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming and speaking today. Appreciate that.
For sure. And I think I'm excited that we're able to leverage this committee to be able to get information over to the administrative committee, which
That's
is
me.
the chair. The chair is right here, so the handoff could be very explicit. I will say, Ruth, being that we are the new team, we're the freshman team today. If I want to recommend something, do I have to ask for a motion to recommend, or do I just officially
right,
just
right
recommend
now
over?
you just can just say, I would like to
Okay.
give this. And you can, she's right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Informally, you can say, hey, when you call a meeting, if you could, please start
Yeah.
looking into this. And I'm sure Mary Beth will be more than happy.
I
To
will
work with
schedule a
you.
meeting.
Awesome.
You guys know.
Perfect.
And
So-
anything that ever is needed from support-wise, for the alderman, for anyone, my office is always there, always willing, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate
you.
that.
So I would like to officially refer this over to your committee. I think it's the administration committee for review. And I also did have a question. I did look through the manual as well, and I wanted to ask you a question, Ruth, that if you would be so kind. So
Sure,
on,
just tell me which page.
page 55, 54, and 55. So this is a grievance and complaint policy, and so I just wanted to ask the question on here. If you look at
Before you go any further, let
yeah,
me
yeah.
remind everyone, at the
Yeah.
very beginning of this handbook, first and foremost, the union contracts go forth before the handbook. Wherever the union contracts are silent, that's when
when the
we
handbook
refer
kicks
to
in.
this
Yep.
handbook. So for instance, the police, the fire, AFSCME, all of those, which are our main ones, which encompasses the majority of all of our employees, all have a section on grievances. So this right here would only come for a very small amount
Like
of the
non-union.
actual employees,
Yep.
usually part-timer, seasonal, and administrative staff.
Yep.
Everyone else, they have a grievance process that goes through their union contracts. And I believe those, yeah, I have copies of those if you ever need them.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah.
Okay, but yes,
Yeah,
feel free
for
to
sure.
continue.
So step one talks about filing a grievance with your immediate, like talking about the grievance with your immediate supervisor. Is there an alternative process if the grievance is with your supervisor? So is there someone that
Yeah.
a staff person can go to? if
I've
it's the
actually had
person?
people go
Okay.
just straight to me.
Okay.
And whenever anything's brought to me, there's no way that I can ignore it because that would be immoral and irresponsible.
Okay.
So yes, I've actually had to deal with that in the past when someone went straight to me, and then I took the complaint, I documented it, and I went through all the correct paths to follow through with it. So yes, there's
Okay.
definitely that option, and it has been used.
Perfect. And then I guess I would just, I'll send over my suggestion in terms of maybe just making that explicit in the step. It might be in there. I don't necessarily see it right now, but just stating that clearly that if there is a problem with the immediate supervisor, that they can come to you, just so that they know that. I'm sure most staff know that,
Yeah.
but just to have it in the manual would be a good practice as a suggestion. And you all can take it to committee, and if
Sure.
if it doesn't go through,
Yeah, and what we could do also, just so we don't have to rewrite the whole handbook, since we do have quite a few copies, it's very easy to change it, and I can put it digitally. but to do a reprint would cost a lot. What we could do is we could do an addendum,
Yeah.
an addendum to this, and then I could just go ahead and print it out and put it with all the handbooks to change that, or easily I can do something.
Yeah.
I have it in Word, so I could do that easily, but it's just always the cost of printing. So easily we can go ahead and do an addendum or make clarity, and then I could put it on the back with any other changes.
Right, as you go through the process, the
It-
training handbook gets a little cluttered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier sometimes after, if any changes need to be made, if it's not a huge amount that needs to change the whole book, then you can always do an addendum easily.
Perfect.
On the website, though, it'll be updated. That's
Oh,
easy.
yes, whatever is approved by council, I have it in Word format, and very easily I can change it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Any other questions or anything from committee? Okay. The next item on the agenda I'd like to cover is the committee's purpose statement. So every committee has a purpose statement or a mission statement or a set of different objectives that they focus on as a committee. We are the Human Relations Committee, and based on just doing some, glossing over and reading through the different mission statements, purpose statements, I wanted to take some time, being that it's our first time together as a committee, to look at these and make sure that we understand them, that if we have any questions, or if we want to, as a committee, expand upon them, change some language, update some things at this moment, or at least start the conversation around that. Because I think that when looking at our committee and the opportunities we have here, I think that there is a great opportunity to be a middle point, like a kind of a liaison between the community and the city. And my colleague up here, Jim, had talked about that earlier, and I think that's a really valid point for us to be able to position ourselves that way and write the statement in a way that allows us to be more effective. So would love to open it up for any thoughts on that. And before actually I do that, I'd like to read it so that everybody knows what is stated at this moment. So the Human Relations Committee shall provide programs to educate the community, equalize opportunities, eliminate discrimination, and promote goodwill among all persons, advise the city and departments on issues of policy that relate to human relations and discrimination, and make recommendations of policy to the city that address, readdress, and prevent or discourage acts of discrimination. Number 3, recommend policies for city departments to lessen conflicts and improve understanding in the community, especially for matters related to quality of life issues for residents and businesses. Number 4, study and investigate landlord tenant issues and concerns. And number 5, address the city council on matters relating to policies and programs which will serve to further workforce, it says. So with that being shared, I kind of want to open it up to the rest of the committee to get your thoughts on what you feel the vision of our committee can be. If you have anything that you think we should change in the purpose statement, what are some of your thoughts on how we're positioned right now to be impactful?
So I'm going to say that, and we spoke about this a little bit, it talks about policies in here. So I'm a bit confused because under the administration committee, you have policies, and then under the human relations, we have policies. Can you shed some light on that for us, Ruth?
Let me take a look real quick so I can see. Insurance program. So the administration one, basically, it's just HR policies. It's anything specifically for employees. That's where that comes in, and also with benefit policies. So anything HR related to deal with employees would go strictly to administration committee. Looking at the human relations, in here, basically, it's city and department on issues of policy that relate to human relations and discrimination. So that would be any other policies outside of HR would go under this committee then.
So, right, so if through our discussions, through our communications with the community, we would be the ones that would develop and work with legal to
Correct.
develop and then bring to city council,
Correct.
specifically around human relations of the city with the community.
Exactly. And so in the past, they always consider ordinances and they take a look at those. And my favorite phrase that I learned from day one, this is always a living, breathing document. You can change it anytime you want. Nothing is set in stone with ordinances. It's up to the aldermen to go ahead and look at those policies, those ordinances, to put forth their recommendations, and then to vote among yourselves. My job is just to implement whatever you guys pass, or to help you and, be a liaison with any department heads, anything management-wise. But legal is there to help when it actually comes to the preparation of the ordinances. So once you go ahead and decide what you want to put in those policies, you would work with legal to actually write those ordinances or write the actual policies, and then you would bring it before the council, vote amongst it, decide if this is the way you want to go, majority rules, and then if so, then it would be my job to implement whatever policies are passed. So the administration's basically just HR. Human relations here would be any other city policies that would affect, basically our residents or the city as a whole.
Yeah, so when I hear that, and I definitely see what you're saying, it seems like some of these policies can also be human resource policies, like if you're looking at discriminatory, policies or policies that are used, to resolve conflict, like those could be housed in human resources. So what I'm kind of looking at this committee like, and I don't know how you all feel about this, but I almost feel like this is the DEI arm of the administrative committee. Like this is the committee that focuses on issues of equality, of equity, you know what I mean? Because of that discrimination piece being in there. There is some information, or at least I thought there was on here. I mean, it says equalize opportunities. There's some language in here that kind of speaks to that already. And then there's also issues in here that are, well documented to be equity issues when it comes to landlord and tenant, relationships, community voice being centered in our work. So I think what I would love the committee to start thinking on is like, how can we truly live into that then, if that's the lane that we're working towards, really truly bringing that lens to City Hall. To make sure that we're not missing anything when it comes to issues of equity, issues of inclusion and diversity. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that, or any?
Well, I would just add, as I read through it, a lot of what I see is it's like how we can work with department heads in helping them develop strategies on how they can engage with residents in a way in which everyone feels like they're treated the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's really one of the things that I think we really should look at is how do we educate the departments around how to engage,
Right.
regardless of who you're engaging with.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's key for sure. Navigating community, right? Like figuring out how to get that good community engagement is important. But then there's also pieces in here. I feel like this is definitely a two-way kind of committee, because there's pieces in here that speak to educating the community as well, right? So there might be some things that pass at council, or new opportunities or new resources. Like how are we sharing that with the community, or how are we advising the city to share that with the community? Seems to
How are
be
we
another
getting that
piece.
information back out
Yeah.
in a way that's effective.
And maybe
yeah.
not necessarily, one second, sorry, just maybe not necessarily us advising on how to do that, but with what lens. So there is like an outreach committee or communications committee, I believe,
There is.
right? And so they probably would take on
outreach.
that outreach piece, right? But like, I think we have a,
Kind of drive the, kind of develop
Yeah.
the plan.
yeah, or maybe like, what do we need to think of when we're doing this? Like, what are the set of, what guidelines do we have? What principles do we have? What values do we have when we are trying to reach out to community? What things do we need to be thinking about, right? Language, accessibility, accessibility in general, right? Like these different pieces that maybe we could advise that committee on or the city on to be thinking about when they do, share information or try to educate the community on something. I'm sorry, Ruth, go ahead.
Oh,
if you
no
had something.
problem. I was just stretching. So, just so everyone knows, right now we actually have a communications division within the mayor's office. This communications division, fresh, it comes out of hearing from a few years, we need more communications between the community, City Hall, on anything and everything city related. We've been doing a lot more, especially during COVID. That's where, on social media, we've had our followers like quadruple. I mean, it's gone huge on the amount of people that we're actually communicating with. We're not only doing it through social media, our websites, our app, but a lot of times it's much more well received when it's in person. So you saw as you came in all the people here with vehicle stickers. Well, one of the things our communications division did is we have different partnerships with different organizations, different governments, like the township, the health department, Erie House, we have a partnership with, and we'll set up these little pop-up tents outside where we have people coming, and then we'll share information from different social services, just anything that's city related. We have our kiosk outside. A lot of people utilize that, and those in-person communications, I just don't want people to think everything is just digital, because a lot of times it's much better received when it's actually in person. So if you go to our fireworks events, this Friday on the 2nd, we're gonna have a spot right there too. That's one of the things we started doing with actually the census, and that's when we noticed, when we were just out there giving away census information, people kept on asking about city resources. We started handing those out. We worked with Erie House with the census, and they were handing out our city information. So I don't want us to overlook that. But one of the things that our communications division is doing is we're actually looking at doing a new website and just following through and doing a survey. They're going to be starting with our department heads and with our employees to see what they want to see, and then we're going to change that, and they're going to move it forward with the community. So they've already started that process. I'm sure the Communications Aldermanic Committee outreach committee, I'm sure he'll be holding a meeting, and they'll probably be giving a better summary on what they've done and where they're looking at going. But this committee can definitely utilize, if you have any ideas. I'm sure all of you are going to get a survey coming soon from this division, the communications division, on what you want to see. So that would be a perfect avenue for every single one of these aldermanic committees to say, we need to get information and this is how we think it'll work, or what, so.
I have to say that one thing that sticks out to me is it says study and investigate landlord-tenant issues and concerns. So, how do we go out there and speak to these landlords or these tenants, right? And know what their issues are. Maybe they have a slumlord, right? So getting that information, I know that, when you own a building, you don't necessarily live there. They live somewhere else. So how can we help our tenants with issues and concerns that they have?
Yeah.
Sometimes, with the slumlord. And maybe they're a slumlord because they don't have the resources, or they don't know how to help their tenant either. Or if they are being a slumlord, what can we do to them to make them better?
Right.
So that they can
Yeah.
be a better landlord to their tenants,
Mm.
right?
So I think, and I think that's adding a little bit more to that, right? Because that's just study and investigate. But what you're
Right.
talking about is like, how can we advocate for our residents, and how can we educate, residents, I mean, tenants and landlords on issues. And where does that start, right? What does the study and investigate mean? Does the city take data on that? Like, or is that just mean us being in the community, asking questions and going out to visit our renters, in our wards and having conversations with them and asking what they think and bringing that back to committee,
Right.
and asking them to come to committee to talk about the issues that they are concerned around. I think one thing that is really important to name that, like, this is a dot point right in the middle of the purpose statement.
Yeah.
And Berwyn doesn't have a lot of renter rights built in right now. So I think with this specific, the number 4, study and investigate landlord, tenant, and issues and concerns, like, this is one that we really need to put some work into and maybe, just explore a little bit more for that one, because I think that there's a lot to be done there, for sure.
So within the city, I'm sure there's a database that has all the building owners, and does the city know, like, each of these big buildings, because I know, like, in Second Ward, we got
Yeah.
one building that's abandoned, right at Easton.
Whenever anyone purchases a building, they have to register it through the compliance department. So our compliance department know who's the owner of every single building that has a transaction that goes through the city, yes.
Well, I'm just saying that would be a starting point. I mean,
Yeah.
where we could, try to not get into a relationship, but kind of start building
Yeah.
some discussions with some building owners,
Yeah.
that are having serious issues, whether it's issues with tenants or issues with property
Right.
as a whole.
Right.
Because again, as we know, when landlords, a lot of times when landlords, the owners aren't living in the building, and they only come around every 6
Right.
months, they
Right.
don't know what the building looks like
Right.
those 6
Right.
months when they're not there.
Yeah.
Right.
So holding people accountable.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's
mean-
And that would be working with the building department.
Correct, and yeah, that would be working with the building department. They could tell you how many units per building. They would have that breakdown.
I would be more concerned, though, to start with the tenant issues.
Yeah.
Let's start with the tenant issues and then, go to landlord issues.
Yeah.
I believe Cook County, I have it somewhere I'm always looking for updates on what's going on. Cook County recently passed within the last year something regarding tenant rights. You might want to take a
I
look.
think I
Do you
did
have
see
a
that.
copy of that?
No, but I did see that.
So you might want
I
to
can
start
look it
looking
up.
at there as a resource, and then see what they're doing already, what's
Right.
already in place through the county, and see where things are lacking, and that the municipality would have to come in. But I
Yeah.
believe they just passed something recently within the last year.
And I think most importantly is getting this information to the tenants, right? I don't know, whether it be a flyer or just letting them know that, these are your rights. I think that a lot of folks that live here don't know their tenant rights.
Yes.
So, educating them on their rights, I think is the first start.
Yeah.
All right.
And then when those complaints start coming in,
Yeah.
then we can
Right.
go to the landlord.
But again, I mean, once we review the Cook County stuff and we see where
Right.
we're at here in Berwyn, and then we decide which direction we want to take it to bring to council, and then again, this could become one of your pop-up information
Yeah.
documents.
More than happy.
Yeah,
We're always looking for
additional
things.
paperwork
Right.
For the tenants, yeah, I mean,
So they can walk up to something and go, oh, just put it in their pocket, and
Right.
if they ever refer to it, they do. If they don't, they
Yeah.
don't. But if we give them the information.
right, so
it's
that
only
they
gonna
have
make
it,
things-
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, and this is critical right now, right? We can't understate that in terms of the fact that we're still dealing with the impact of the pandemic, and folks are still hurting in our community. So I think the more outreach we can do, providing them with resources and building those relationships so that they feel connected to the community, they feel welcome. I think that's also a piece in here that, like, it's one part to study, like, the policy. There is some, like, outreach pieces here and education pieces, but I would love the city to be a more welcoming space for renters, so that they feel more connected to the community. And through the work that we do on a committee, like maybe that can be an outcome like that we strive for. But yeah, I want to also just give a little bit more time to anybody else on the committee. If there's anything else that stood out to you on this list that really jumped out to you, or that you have questions on, or that you feel like you would like to elaborate on, please do that at this time.
So I'm just going to say, only because of my background, right, I'm the parent liaison at the high school, so.
Mary Beth, can you speak more into that?
Oh.
So I just want to make
Sorry.
sure you're heard.
Okay.
Thank you.
When I look at, provide programs to educate the community, right, I think that we have a lot of programs here. Again, I'm the parent liaison at the high school, and I see the programs that are out there. And then recently, we just got Erie Neighborhood House, which is a great program. And I think having them here and just kind of letting our community know that they're here, and the tons of resources that they offer is key. Folks don't know, but we need to make sure that they know. I know that on my page, I constantly look at Erie House, and anytime they put something up there, I share it on my page. But I also know that not everyone's on social media, and sometimes older folks are not on social media. They don't understand all that technology, right? So having what you mentioned earlier outside with all that information is key. And I know I've seen Erie House here giving out information. I've seen folks going up to the table. So I think that's a great thing that we're doing now with that communication piece, and that wall outside with all that paperwork out there. I'm going to take a picture and put it on my Facebook as well, to just let the community know there is information, because I think that a lot of the older folks appreciate paper, flyers, stuff that they can read. Of course, we have to make sure that it's in Spanish and English as well. But I think we're heading in the right direction as far as educating our community. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
You did mention the seniors. They definitely, a lot of them are
Yes.
starting with the technology. They've kind of been forced to because of COVID, but we haven't been able to have our senior programming due to COVID. Hopefully we can start it up in the fall now that we're in phase 5. But before, we used to have, every month, we'd have over 200 seniors at our luncheons. At those luncheons, we used to bring flyers on programs, just all kinds of resources
Yeah,
that
they
were
like that.
available. Anything from Waste Management's program when they started with the At Your Door program, how to get rid of all those hard to get rid of items, from electronics to paint to, automotive things. And just so you know, 80% of the stuff that they actually pick up, it's recycled. So that's just a little recycling thing, but
Yeah.
fact for ya. I'm always looking at all that fun stuff. But yeah, but hopefully with these senior programs, we'll have, they like everything in paper. They
Yes,
like to
they
see
do.
it. They want to put it on with a magnet on their refrigerators as
Yes.
reminders.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to make sure we don't ignore that population who's not
Right.
on social media every single
right.
day. And so hopefully in the fall, we can start up with that. Once again, COVID got in the way, but that was a great time and a great way to actually reach that section of our population.
Right, and maybe even, when they have those luncheons, maybe have personnel from Erie House come in there and speak to, our senior citizens, and help them understand the resources that they have that could benefit them.
And then when we talk about just, again, I'm about community partnership.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I do. We work with a lot of organizations. You gotta be, and I think there's some untapped service providers here in Berwyn that I
Yep.
think we can really start to look at potentially as, what can you offer?
Right.
Because again, I'm gonna blank on the name. I mean, there's the counseling center right at Ridgeland in 26.
Mm,
It's the Pilsen Wellness Center.
yes.
And.
Pillars?
No,
it's
Pilsen
called
Pilsen Wellness.
Pilsen
Wellness Center.
Wellness Center.
Oh.
It's been there like 4 years. And I don't ever see them
Yeah.
out and about, or are they being invited out?
Right,
Is there any kind
right.
of partnership with them? Because, I mean, their primary focus is the Hispanic population.
Right.
For mental health services. You know, so are we doing enough, or are our potential partners in the community doing enough to promote what they have to offer?
Yeah, and how can they leverage us, right? Like to actually get it out even more and amplify that
Exactly.
message. Yeah.
It's because I think
Yeah.
if we have stuff available, if we're not getting it out there, then it's not gonna be, it won't
Right.
be utilized.
Yeah.
Right. I think like with Erie House, you know, their marketing is great. They're out there. They're doing tons of things. Youth Crossroads, you know, for our youth, of course, they're doing tons of things, but they're always out there. Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of Pilsen Wellness.
Yeah, and they've been there
Yeah.
probably 4 years.
In the fourth ward. Yeah.
Fourth ward right on the
Mhm.
corner, the old Elks Lounge, or
Yep.
Elks Club.
So I just want to distill a little bit of what I've heard today, if that's okay with you all. You know, I've heard a lot about meeting people where they're at. And I think that's really important. I've heard a lot about building partnerships. I've heard a lot about us wanting to educate and engage community in a way that is meaningful to them. I've also heard about leveraging, like, you know, our own resources and our connections to make sure the community is in contact with other resources. I heard about centering folks that maybe don't have as much power as others, right? And so once again, I want to say that, like, all the things that you all have said today really do speak to the values of equity and inclusion. And so what I would like to request of both of you, if that's okay, if you would be okay with this, is for me to take a look at these 5 points and maybe do some editing, some small editing,
Yeah.
just to make it match what we talked about today. I'll be looking at the minutes to make sure I go over it, and then bring it back to this committee at our next meeting to review it and see what we all feel about it. And if you all have edits or you have concerns or questions, to go from there, and then hopefully recommend this updated version that we want to kind of live into, that this be our new kind of purpose statement. Because I
Right.
think that there needs to be some updating here. And there is some crossover with other departments, and I just want to make sure that we are being intentional and very specific about what type of work we want to do as a committee moving forward. Do I have your support in that?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, so
Did you want this back?
So
You should.
with any editing, stuff like that, we would bring that to,
Editing of what? Of this? This is actually part of an ordinance. So what you would do is you would go ahead, do your red lines, underlining, just put forth what you want to see. If it's something drastic, then just write it fresh.
yeah,
Ordinance
But if it's just
210.15.
minor things, then you
Yep.
just can do strike-throughs with, underline the new items. And then when you have that, then what you can do is then you, as a committee, could bring that before council to say, we would like to amend ordinance number, is this 210.15?
210.15.
With the following, and you could actually work with our legal department who would assist with that. Let them know what you want to see, and they'll help with the strike-throughs and underlining. And then just put forth to council, and it would be up to them to go ahead and approve or disapprove.
yeah. Thanks. That was a good question. Yeah, and then that would be something we could move forward on after our next meeting once we all feel
Right.
like we have a
And then we're in
consensus.
a
Yeah.
good spot.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So that is all we had for today. Can I ask for a motion to adjourn?
I motion.
second.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming out today. I
Thank you.
appreciate you.
This looks.
I'm Joseph. Sorry, I had some kid problems, so I was a little late. Yes, good. Sorry, my hair was a different color than the last time. We had a weird Pride weekend. No, very permanent. I did it and was like, ooh, I think I regret this. It's fine. Worst comes to worst, I'm just gonna dye brown.
He is very good at dyeing hair. Like,
Oh
they
yeah,
dye, like,
I
all of his hair.
remember when we were at your place.